You're listening to Supervision with a Vision, where we discuss all things supervision. I'm your host, Sarah, professional counselor, marriage and family therapist, play therapist, eating disorder specialist, and cookie lover, with my co-host, Heather, marriage and family therapist, certified Together in Texas counselor, a Texas transplant from California, and outdoor adventurer. Hi, welcome to Supervision with a Vision. Today, Heather and I are talking about experiential supervision. We read The Benefits of a Multisensory Experience in Therapy, published in Counseling Today, 2023. Heather, the first point in the article said, find the right fit.
Yes.
Well, if we're talking about supervision, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking all sorts of things from you want to have the kind of, if you are looking for a supervisor, you don't want to pick a supervisor that's not necessarily practicing the way you're practicing.
Sure. So if you, trying to think of something just totally off the wall that you, that could not be my supervisor.
Right.
If someone was like wanting to rub crystals on you and do like a nude rain dance as part of supervision, you would say, maybe I'm still looking for a supervisor.
Very similar experience happened when I was looking for my supervisor. I went in and it was very, very just new agey and all sorts of different, like wind chimes meant something. If while you were talking, the wind chime got triggered in the wind, then that meant something. And there was lots of connection to that for this individual supervisor. But yeah, I knew within like 3 minutes that this was not the right fit.
I think, it paints two very different pictures. I think that I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it's been a long time, that in grad school, I knew I wanted to do play therapy, but I actually hadn't had very much exposure to play therapy. And my mentor in school recommended I volunteer at a state conference because the benefit was then you could attend for free.
Okay.
So I think I helped people register or something, sat at the front desk, and then I got to attend. And as a play therapist that I now know, and I really appreciate what she does, was the keynote speaker. And at the conclusion of her presentation, we were standing in a circle, no shoes on, holding hands in the dark with a bubble machine going. And Somewhere Over the Rainbow was playing.
Right.
And it held meaning for the presentation. So it wasn't just random. But afterwards, my mom knew that I was going to the conference, and that I was excited. So she called and said, "How was it?" And I went, "It's totally weird.
I can't do this."
No, the opposite.
Oh, the opposite.
Yeah. Right. I told her it's totally weird. No one else I know would get it. Everybody else would think this was so nuts. But
it made perfect sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. These are my people. They get me. I like what they're doing. I'm going to come back.
Okay.
And so I think for each of us, that was our experience. So then that's true for people that we would supervise, that they're looking for an experience or like a fit that's unique to them.
Right.
Now, when you're involved in trainings or things, are there times where you think, nope, that's not me? Or, ooh, that's me. I'm into that.
I usually go that way. Like, ooh, I like that. Like, that's me. But I think it's because I've also honed a little bit more about like what I have time, space, energy for. And so I'm like, oh, if I'm gravitating towards that or I find that interesting, I'm much more likely to be like, oh, that's me. Yeah. Or that's not me.
I know you and I talked about this at the beginning of the year, that I had some money available to me for training.
Oh, that's right.
And we were talking through what sounds fun, what sounds experiential, what sounds like outside of the box a little bit, something different. It was harder than I thought to find something like that. Right. It was, you can't Google something funky and fun.
Right.
I don't know what you come up with, but it's not what I was looking for.
It's not what you want.
But it was a little tricky. So finding the right fit is not as easy as it sounds. It takes a little bit of work.
Right.
Okay. I did ultimately find, I don't know if I told you what I chose.
I don't know. Have we talked about it?
I don't think we did. I found some good play therapy trainings that fit some requirements, which was useful.
Good. Yeah.
And one of them was really good. And I haven't done all of them yet. And the other is a animal assisted experience.
Very
training.
good.
So I'm excited. I haven't started that one either. That was one of the benefits too, is that I've already paid for them, but I haven't had, there's not a deadline. So,
good.
When I have the brain space, then I'll tackle them.
Excellent.
How about if we looked for the right fit and our supervisees are looking for the right fit, how do you tip off new supervisees as to what kind of supervisor you are, what kind of experience they might expect from you?
I think that I either tell them about me, like just in general, oh, I do therapy in this way, or this is what a typical supervision session could look like, but be prepared. It might look nothing like this, depending on I try and structure activities in our supervision to help them take the next step, either in a direction that I know maybe they've been wanting to go, or maybe something that they didn't even assume could be therapeutic. You talked about something a little earlier. We're talking about shooting hoops. I had a client that I saw at my old building. We had a basketball hoop available to us. Well, that was pretty awesome because especially with some of my clients, it's a great distractor, and I did it often, right? Well, now I have a referral from that client's family who was like, oh yeah, she's a therapist that shoots hoops. Well, my new place doesn't have that available. My newer place, not new anymore. But so it's funny that's kind of like one of those, like what you have at one point, you make work around what you have available to you versus, I mean, I don't know that I necessarily would have gone looking for a basketball hoop to make it happen.
Right. Yeah. I think meeting a new supervisee, I try and give them examples, like you said.
Right.
And I think I try to incorporate enough experiences that when I do, it's not a surprise. It's not like the first time we've done something like that. Okay, so the next point in our article was multi-sensory experiences. Do you think that you provide a lot of multi-sensory experiences in supervision?
I don't know that I do. I was thinking about that. I was like, do I really get that involved where I'm like, okay, let's think about all of our senses. But then I started thinking about other things I've done in supervision, and I was like, maybe they're more sensory than I really even know. I mean,
I hadn't thought of that. You're thinking incorporating all of them at one time. That's a challenge. Well, that's like a brain teaser.
Right. But I mean, I think maybe I do incorporate some of them without even...
Okay. Well, what do you think is an example? Let's get more specific so people listening know what is a multi-sensory experience that might happen in supervision.
Well, think about your senses. So something you can smell, taste, see, experience, like do with your body.
So shooting hoops would be like a kinetic experience. Right. And I can imagine doing that in supervision, that it's like back and forth, like maybe you pass the ball, you shoot the hoop.
Right.
You give an example or say something, and then back and forth.
You could do that. I have gone on walks for supervision before, especially if I have a supervisee that I think is like too stuck in the office or too like, hey, let's get out today. Let's go do supervisions. And I try and give them the heads up ahead of time so they're prepared. It's not fun to take a walk in heels, but something like that just to get outside. And that supervision is more about like, let's breathe some different air than what's in our office. Let's do something a little bit different. But I think also getting to like being away from the common sounds of the office, whether it's like, hey, we're leaving our cell phones behind. We're not taking them. Yes. We're not, we're not checking in halfway through supervision because something popped up on your phone. Things like kind of like almost taking away sensory inputs that can be more distractions, and then putting in some other inputs that can be. Yeah.
I think something that I would do that sounds like just a task that needs to be accomplished, but I think it also meets this multisensory need, is I would have a supervisee we'd meet in the playroom, and part of what we're doing while we're talking, and it might be what we are actually talking about, is that we would clean or organize the playroom.
Yep.
That I'm thinking like the container I have for all the dress up clothes. Going through that and making sure things aren't broken, right? Making sure things still are like safe or work right or what we want. And while we're doing that, thinking through how it's used or how it could be used or the meaning it holds. And I think that's really useful because then you feel it differently. Like if we're talking about a session where a kid used the play, dress up play stuff, and you're describing what they did and how they used it.
Right.
And we're actually looking at what they touched and how they touched
very different. And not only that, but there is that connection that we're learning more and more about, but that we don't quite all the way understand about our brain yet, and how different things elicit the memory. Like you actually might remember the session deeper or better when you are touching that fireman hat, or you are holding something that they used in session. So there is that kind of connection to your brain that may bring out more memory or more ideas than what you originally had.
I think the same is true about other toys or parts of the playroom, that maybe getting out. I'm thinking I have a marble maze game, and in supervision, using that or playing with that or role playing with that, and appreciating, for some kids that's hard.
Right. It's a difficult, very hard task. Right.
Game. And so then in doing it, and us actually doing it, you can appreciate, oh, that is kind of frustrating.
Right.
Oh, well, now thinking about the session where I had a kid that became frustrated trying to play with this, there's new context because I'm trying to do it and it's actually kind of hard, or it falls apart when I try to get it to do what I want it to do.
You know, as you're saying that, I was remembering a session that I had with one of my supervisees that was like very, very new to working with kids of any kind, and not really play therapy, but more like using games, like playing Uno, and like what you're saying, taking a turn and saying something when you've put down a card or the next person puts down a card, and using checkers as one example, or a simple game like Candyland, but mixing it up for feelings Candyland. So I have had supervision before where I was like, we're going to play these games so that you've practiced and you know how to use them in session to get what you need in the session.
I'm trying to think. So maybe check in with some of the other senses: hearing, taste, smell.
All those things.
I think I've used some of all of those in different supervision sessions. An old tried and true eating disorder food experience is using raisins.
Yeah. Okay.
So in eating disorder treatment, you would have someone do this. And I think it's really practical to do it with anyone who's asking someone else to do it, or maybe someone they know is in treatment, but they're trying to understand what it's like to be in treatment. But the experience is you take a single raisin and you spend it feels like a really long time. So you first have a single raisin and you spend like long minutes, like 5 full long minutes, looking and noticing the raisin.
Okay. So it's crevices. It's
you could draw a picture. You could just look. You could just be looking at it. And you're not touching it. You're just looking at it. So and then you use each sense, and you do that. So then the final step, you say taste for the last step. So imagine this little raisin that you've spent now like 20 minutes.
Right. You've given a lot of time to this raisin.
And then you put it in your mouth and you hold it in your mouth without chewing. You just hold it in your mouth for 5 full minutes.
That's a long time.
Do you know what happens?
No, what happens?
It becomes unwrinkly.
Oh. Your saliva keeps it back up.
Right. And you really, really taste it. So
versus just kind of
right. If you just like one chew and then swallow it, so you're really, really tasting it, and you're really and so all those parts, and you smell it differently because it's in your mouth. 5 minutes is a long, long, long time.
It's like part of me really wants to do this activity, and the other part of me is like, no, I don't want to do it.
There's not a part where I don't think it becomes like uncomfortable, but you really experience one little raisin if you spend that much time on it. So I think there's value in doing something like that. I think because the raisin it's well used.
Right.
I think I would do a different food.
Oh yeah.
Or a different thing.
Right.
Like broccoli. Broccoli's kind of weird. If you spent 25 minutes
analyzing broccoli,
thinking about smelling, putting it in your mouth, and just holding it there, I think you would notice a lot of things about broccoli. And I think I would pick broccoli because it's not something that all people easily just move through life and just don't pay attention to other people. Some people have a hard time with broccoli. So you would experience something in a new way, and you would have greater understanding of how somebody else was experiencing it. So that's multisensory.
Right.
And I think it's practical for not just people with an eating disorder.
Right.
That spending that much time noticing something, you're going to experience it in a lot of new ways.
Yeah, I was just thinking while you were talking about all the different skill building that brings in to different brain types, right? Like different things, or maybe people that need to slow down, and like acknowledge things or take time to think things through before being reactive. It could be, I could use that little raisin in lots of ways.
I was listening to a training yesterday about sand tray. It was an introductory training, but there was something about the way they were describing that the value or using sand tray, even with no figures, where you just put your hands in the sand.
Okay.
And that you feel that the sand is cold and that it's heavy, and then the way it feels on your hands, and then that you get a lot out of that. I can imagine, what if you had a supervisee who was really tense or not in touch with their feelings, and you just put them in front of a sand tray and just said, while we're talking, I want you to just put your hands in that, run your hands through the sand. And I had never thought of it this way, but it has nice symbolism. That if that's what you're doing with the sand tray, at the end, you kind of like brush your hands off or clap them together, and it feels like a finish.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Very good.
So the final point in our article was incorporating sensory elements throughout supervision. So you and I talked about this and thought about how we understood it. And we understood that they were saying you can have once in a while experiences, but how do you make incorporating senses something that happens all the time, something that's pervasive throughout supervision.
Right. And I think part of it's being deliberate, right? Like knowing that like you're intentional about not only remembering to bring it up, but also in what your planning is, like, so that you can make sure that happens. In the example of the sand tray, even though you're not creating a sand tray, you're using the sand tray almost as a fidget, right? Like almost as like a processing tool. Well, that can be incorporated in so many ways without doing sand tray. I mean, you could incorporate that into making sure, like acknowledging simple things like, oh, you look tense. Like your body is like really tense. Do you want to take a walk, or should you get comfy and take your shoes off? And, you know, those kind of like just giving an opportunity for there to be.
That's what I was thinking, that maybe once you've introduced some of these multisensory experiences, communicating in lots of ways to your supervisee that it's always an option.
Right. Like you need this today, then
right. If there was one day that you did play basketball, then it's okay to play basketball again.
Right.
Or if there was a day where the sand tray was offered and you really felt like you got a lot out of it, well, the sand tray's right here. We can use it again.
Right.
What about even, and I think that you're saying this, but tell me if this is what you mean. Through the discussion in supervision, being intentional about using sensory words and asking sensory questions.
Right.
So like pointing out you're tense.
Right.
Or saying things like, how did you hear that?
Exactly.
Or, well, when maybe the supervisee is trying to describe what their client was doing, and you say something like, where did you feel it?
Yeah.
Or, where do you think they were feeling it? Like, where did you sense in their body that they were tense or reacting?
Right. Like what cues did they give off that allowed you to even notice that? I mean, it might be like, oh, you're really tense. Oh, I'm tense. Like they may not even be aware of it, but how they're holding their body or how they're sitting might be telling you something.
Can you think of any other ways? Maybe even revisiting any forms or, assessments that you use in supervision,
right? That incorporating that into it, and even a little bit with like role playing and supervision, and like, well, what did her voice sound like? Why did you think that mom was mad at you? She just seemed confused, or like really asking those questions, because if that's the experience of your supervisee, well, then you need to be able to help them assess, like, is that your experience or is that like real? Like I
like that example. You and I were listening to little sound clips earlier today. And we didn't explicitly talk about it, but I think the ones that we liked or chose
Right.
had something to do with that.
Right. It really
had to
did.
do with
We like the sound of that, or
the way it felt.
right.
So the sound impacted our emotions, impacted our how we reacted to it. So you could incorporate that. You could ask those kinds of questions intentionally, bringing in the sensory discussion, and then also it lends itself to more sensory experiences.
Right.
Well, Heather and I would love to hear about experiences that you incorporate into supervision and how senses find their way into your supervision on a daily basis. And of course, we'd love to hear new episode ideas from you. Thanks.